Good day, everyone. Today is Saturday, June 11th, 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a new feature of Birth Moms Real Talk. First of all, I want to say that the Birth Moms Real Talk website, and I'll say it this way, they say the greatest form of flattery is trying to imitate you. Well, we blocked some people trying to take over our website. So, website, don't go there now. IT person is working on as we speak. This just happened this morning. But this is a place of grace and healing. And how to learn how. You'll learn how. So this is a new feature. First of all, our first anniversary is coming up. June 26th, 1 year. 1 year. We started June 26, 2021. Praise be, we're still here. Praise be, we're thriving. I forget the numbers, over 15,000, 200,000 listeners, 30 episodes. That's all I'll say. Listening to the episodes. The newest ones, Laura and Ruby Lee. Go back to the beginning. Listen to my story. So what this place for grace and healing is going to be once a month, coming on 101 with Yvonne Rivers. And in case you didn't know, part of my past has been a live talk radio host. So I'm used to doing this. And it's really going to be quote unquote like a TEDx talk, but it's a TEDx talk to the adoption community. And I say the community because we're talking about adoptees, we're talking about birth moms, we're talking about adoptive moms. All of you are our listeners. I hear from you all the time. The most recent one from an adoptive mom said that her perception for birth mothers has changed since she's been listening to the podcast. Now that's resounding recommendation, and I just take it all for that. First of all, let me get this straight. I am not a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist. See your professionals, get your therapy, and do your work. Get your therapy and do your work. I am a person who have experienced it in the midst of this, and I'm shouldn't say hoping, but I know by me sharing, number one, my stories you heard on the podcast is the first one when Damon, shout out Damon, first recorded me. It's been healing. It's been taking place for the past year. And we want to bring this in a more focused effort that really will cover some different topics. And we want your comments. So please put in your comments. For those who don't want to be identified on Facebook, send your comments or questions directly to info@Birth Moms Real Talk. We are here for transparency, but we will protect your privacy. And I say that to the moms who really record the podcast, because as I say, not everyone's ready to come out full public for the whole world to know, because this is where we are, that this is going across the world. In fact, I was recorded and taped a podcast out of Australia just last week. And Australia is the number 3 country after the United States and Canada who has the most listeners of Birth Moms Real Talk. So hope to be there this year. But let's just start talking about maybe what you've gained from Birth Moms Real Talk. And I'm going to share my story. And most of you, I say should have. Hopefully you have listened to this story, because that was the first episode back in June 26th. And as you saw, that my experience of placing my son was really predicated or dictated or determined. I didn't have help. And I say this, and you've heard me say before, is some people just are not ready, but that does not mean you didn't need it. My parents simply were not capable, ready to do that. I understand that forgiveness came years past. It's been 45 years. No, take that back. 45 years since I found them, nearly 49 years this year. But you have to understand that we can't make people do things they are not able to do. But that does not negate that you didn't need that. So I say all of this to say that if you're not getting it, we need to find it. One particular reason why this platform was established, because I knew it was needed. I knew it was needed, that Adoptees, the whole constellation needed to hear birth mothers talk about their experience, their journey. Every story is different, but yet we're still the same as being birth moms. Every adoptee story is different, but yet it's the same of them being adopted. So you have some commonalities. But when you hear someone else say that, and you'll see in yourself, I feel that same way too. I feel that same way too. So, what I have seen, even before the podcast a year ago, just tuning into support groups and whatever, I was on 3 support groups this week, and I've got my own therapist. So it's like you got to do the work. When I say reunion is hard, and it is, I don't mean that it's too hard. There's a difference. When you think something's too hard, you don't do it. But when you acknowledge it's hard, that means you know you've got to dig in and do your work. Now, I'm a business owner celebrating 25 years of Phoebe Marketing Group this year, and actually 40 years as an entrepreneur. And I do a self-development, or actually a conflict resolution workshop. And the acronyms I use are I, C, and E. ICE. First, the I is identify. Now let's just relate that to it. This is really like a TEDx talk, like I said. So the I is you have to identify that pain. Ooh, you got to identify that trauma. Identify it and recognize it that it's there. Now, I'll be throwing out some different books that I read. I'm doing a deep dive again into Primal Womb. Always reading for As the Body Keeps the Score. But along with it, that identifying and acknowledging, you cannot heal or solve anything that you don't acknowledge is there. So if we keep going around, oh, I'm okay, because that's what we're told. Oh, just move on with your life. You'll get over it. Oh, you'll never see your son again. They didn't know me. From the very beginning, I said, I will see my son. I've kept journals, and I've got copies of journals that I've written 30 some years ago, and I was right. I will see my son one day. I had no clue. But I had a belief. I had a belief, and that's all I needed. That is all I needed. So first identify and allow. I say allow, because you've got to give yourself the space. You've got to, that's why you need your therapy, your help, your support, and so forth. But allow yourself to shed the tears, to feel that pain. Because until you feel it and acknowledge you're feeling it, and it's okay, not to stuff it and say, oh, that didn't happen, and so forth. So acknowledging that's identifying or acknowledging. Then confronting it is really realizing how hurtful it was, how much hurt and trauma it was, because only when you recognize to the depth of what it is that you recognize to the depth of what we have to dig in and get healing. And I use the word grace because we need to give ourselves grace. That means not push ourselves and say, oh, I can just move on with this and I can deal with this. Whew, especially about reunions. Especially about reunion. If you're searching for your child, or your adoptee searching for your parent, your mom, excuse me, don't have allergies, don't have anything else, it's just a sneeze. Okay, so if you're in searching and you're in reunion, get ready to be ready when that child or that mom or that parent comes. It's going to take some things that you have to do. Some days you may not be able to get up. We talk about the roller coaster. Sometimes your roller coaster will throw you off. And you know what? That's okay. Just land in a soft place. Wherever you land, just stay there for a minute. Allow yourself to be able to get up. So you're going to get the real talk here. As I say, birth mom's real talk. We don't skate over anything. We don't really cover up anything. We pull in the covers off all of that. So we're talking about for is identifying, being able, and then confront it in order to eliminate it. So the ICE, eliminate, identify, confront, and eliminate. Eliminating it, not really is going, no, this is my opinion. Adoption is lifelong. So you're going to be going through this for your whole life. For as whether it will be eliminated, but it's to be managed. And that's what we can do in a lot of situations. Just manage it. because really you have to look at what is your perception of what happened to you. And that's with adoptees too, because I always have put adoptees first. They were the only one in the triad who did not have a decision on adoption or anything else or placement. They were babies or whatever age, they didn't undermine or not making a decision. That pre-verbal, but what I say also, they may have been pre-verbal and not being able to speak, but that birth bond is forever. That does not change. That does not change. That does not change. Mothers, you have a bond with your child, whether you have found them in reunion or not. Adoptees, you have a bond with that birth mother, whether you have found them or not. Adoptive moms, you have a bond with the other two, the adoptees and the birth mom, because nurture, nature versus nurture, it takes both. And I will say, I gave birth, I gave my son life. His adoptive mom taught him how to live life. And both of those were needed. Both of those were needed. A recent conversation was in an adoptee had said, well, my birth mom will never take the place of adoptive mom. No, you're right. But guess what? We don't want to. We don't come in to take the place of the adoptive mom. We come in because of the love of our child. And it's our child. And we work with that. But along with, if you've got that fear, you're putting up this barrier, this wall. The wall keeps things out, but it also keeps things in. What do you want? Do you want to be free to really get involved and have all the things that you have and want in life? That's why being open with caution. Trust, test and measure, I like to say. How do you build trust? Test and measure. Test and measure. We talk about our perception, and you can really say your perception is your reality, but is it the reality? Because all we know, and we make our decisions based on our environment, our training, how we came up, that's our perception. And that's based on what we've been raised and so forth, because we always are getting into a conversation and just in general about society, how society was back in the 60s and the 70s and whatever, the baby scoop era and all that, how society said or how it's supposed to be. Not to see your child, and you've got to go into a home and not be seen, and you embarrass your family and so forth and put the shame. I refuse to take the shame, because that's your choice to take the shame. You know your name. Do not be called out of your name, outside of your name, and only answer to what you choose to answer to. That takes power. That takes declaration. It's not going to happen overnight. I praise God that He gave me that the talents, the perception, and the purpose, and a mouth, and a mouth to stand up and say. Because in my day, it was no one was talking about it. Secrets, and secrets are taken to the grave. People, don't take your secret to the grave. Share your story, birth mom, if you want to. I'll give you anonymity. And I'll just say this: some of the episodes, that name is not that name, and that's okay. That is okay, because whenever they're sharing, they're getting it out and relieving themselves and getting that freedom that they have never had before. And part of freedom, when you feel like you're free, you can stick your chest out and believe, I believe, and this is what I want, because you have a choice. All of you have a choice. Adoptees, you want and need to know your history. Now, I hear from you, adoptees. Don't go away from me now. Is the fact I've heard that, and I'm encouraging too to put in any comments you have. We may have a comment here. Let me put this in. Okay. Okay. Thought I had a comment. Okay. So in other words, Really, she was just saying happy afternoon to me. But you have a right to know your heritage and your history. Where did you get your eyes, your nose, or your personality along with it? And what we as a triad need to know is the fact that we all garnered, I like to say, the genes, and I am a recovering scientist, to become part of what our mom was as we were growing into it. And part of having that, and with that, is number one, recognizing where we came from and adding in the nurturing that you're having with that. So that's a big part of that. So I'm encouraging you to put a comment right here as we're speaking, or send it if you like. So don't want to be noticed on Facebook. Send it to actually info at Birth Moms Will Talk, and I'll be answering. So this video will be posted. Will be posted on this site, so you'll be able to go back to it and really put in any comments or whatever with that. But along with it, as we say, part of it is setting our boundaries. Setting our boundaries, whether we're in reunion with a child or our mom or with people. Let's just talk about this. Boundaries are things that are demarcation line you've put in the sand, and you know that anything over that will either show you disrespect, not showing your value, or whatever. You have a choice. You have a choice. But you know what? We have to teach people how to treat us. Don't assume people know how to treat you, because they don't. They don't know because you haven't said so. Because you haven't said so. So a big part of it is the fact of you look at, in other words, telling them what's going on. This is what's going on. This is what it is. And this is what I need. Now, there's no guarantee you're going to get it, but you need to be prepared to say, I've said that, and recognize that. A lot of times I'll say, use your voice, but you know what? A lot of times you don't have a voice, but you can use your voice after you have found it. It's there. It's there. So you have to look for that voice and be able to have that voice that you're going to be in there with that. So a big part of my belief in saying and writing, I will see my son one day, because I believed. Because I believed and I trusted. And when we trust and believe in something, we can do anything. We can. To say it was easy? Oh, no. Let's get this real clear. Oh, no, it was not easy, but it was worth it. Reunion is hard. It's going to be hard, especially when you're meeting someone, you don't know the situation. Starting off, this is just my opinion, with transparency and honesty. Because I've heard so many adoptees will say, speaking to birth moms about transparency and honesty, heard so many adoptees say, I just want to know the truth. Why didn't they tell me the truth? When you don't know something, you make up stuff. So you create your own scenario. Well, I wonder whether my mom was this, or whether my mom was that, or maybe they were a movie star. I heard someone saying, well, they thought it was Clark Gable or whatever else and so forth with that. But along with it is the fact that, hold on, got some more comments here, because we want to get to those. As both an adoptee and a birth mom, thank you, Kelly, for chiming in. I just want to thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, Kelly. I love you too. I love you, love you. Okay. There is no shame in asking for help. Thank you, Lene, because you know what? Help is here. We are in this together. It's all in this together. And with support and your therapy, I emphasize the therapy. You always hear me say, I'm not a therapist. I'm the one to give you therapy, but you really can gain things by listening to other birth moms, adoptees, and adoptive moms with that. Okay, I think we got some more here. Okay, Rosie, listen to her podcast, Ruby Lee. 25 years after reunion, my surrendered daughter rekindled my shame and is currently in the blame stage. Painfully, I've had to set a boundary and limit communication with her. Rosie, Ruby Lee, you are taking care of yourself. That's what you're doing. You are taking care of yourself. We have to take care of ourselves. When anyone treads over, as I say, that demarcation line, that's up to you. Because if you don't believe you deserve different. And you're never going to get it and let people know until you tell people what you need. That's part of the healing. The grace comes in when you tell to yourself, I deserve this. I don't need to go through this. We talk about divorce, and if you listen to my podcast, you heard me say wasn't asked. I was in a hospital by myself for 3 days. Came home, no one asked me, "Do you have a boy? You have a girl?" Well, he knew I was pregnant. I announced I have a son. Now I recognize I was talking; they weren't listening to me, but I was still talking, and that's why I still talk to this day. I still talk to this day because unless I'm sharing what I need to share, no one can read my mind. Heaven knows they can't read my mind with all this stuff on my mind. But the same for you. We have to speak. And shame is, and that definition, I put what I believe for is the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is when you feel sorry for something you may have done according or outside of the bylaws or rules or whatever, whoever set the rules. I said, I'm going to do a t-shirt. So who is they? Who is they? T-H-E-Y. Who are they? Because, what they say, who cares? Who cares? Whereas shame is when you don't believe you deserve something. So was you okay, Rose? Ruby Lee, you said she's putting shame. She's not putting shame on you. And why I say that, don't receive it. Don't receive it. Because it's up to you to receive it. Now, she may be at that point, understand. And see, that's what we have to do. We have to understand where another person's position is and recognize that's their position and situation. And that's okay. But your situation does not change my reality, my perception, or my thought. I work with people every day, whether it's business and so forth. And when people will say, well, I believe this, I want this, and whatever. If someone comes in and they instantly can change your mind for what you just said you want it, you didn't really want it. Hello. Did you really want it? Or was it just something you could easily be swayed? Now, I'm not saying everybody's right there at that point, but I'm saying it's possible to get there through giving yourself grace, through working through your healing, through not answering to that shame name and acknowledging. Because a big part of what I will say, when you put the idea, I got an issue. The whole the situation society say, oh, it's an illegitimate child because it was born to an unwed mother. What? 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 How can something be illegitimate when I'm looking at it? Oh no, I refuse that. And so that's the situation you have to constantly looking at. And we're all in this together, this whole triad, whole constellation. So if you believe that, there is help just by listening to something. So that's why I say, that's why the numbers of the podcast and the downloads are so up. I knew it was needed. And people are getting so much healing from it by listening to other stories. So we're coming on once a month with the place of grace and healing. It's going to be just one-on-one with Yvonne Rivers. Send me in questions, comments, and whatever, so we can have this dialogue just like we're doing now. And go back and listen to the episode. Make notes of it. I had one person who sent me an email and said as she listened to the episodes, she would make notes and take them to her therapist to work on it. Because you can be on this Facebook Live with me. You can be on the podcast with me. You can be in a support group. But you know where the real work begins? When you turn off the Facebook, you turn off TV, you turn off your computer, and you sit with yourself. You sit with yourself. Get yourself into a quiet, sacred place. And I call it a sacred place where it's just me and God. Because that healing is there for you. It is. I've done my work and continue to do it. This is lifelong, I said. There's no end to it. But you know what? The joy I have, no one can take it from me. The peace I have the clarity of thoughts. I have the desires of my heart. And I have a peace beyond all understanding, and nobody's going to take it away. No one can take my joy. You have to believe that no one can take your joy. In order to get the joy, the happiness is for a reason, for a season. I'm happy now because the sun is out. I'm happy now because I got money. Whatever your happiness is. But what else do you need? What else do you need? So I want you all for is in make comments on our Birth Moms Real Talk Facebook page. Share this, share the episodes, work with each other. While we created, we have Birth Moms Real Talk podcast. We also have our own village. Our own village is a membership that is more than the once a month support group. Now, I attend the once a month support groups, but you know what? I want more than that. And I get that through the village that we have developed, that we meet once a month on a Zoom. We have a Facebook. We are the sisters together who can talk throughout the month, learning what's going on, because you may not have that in your family or your circle, your small circle with that. Because let's face it, a lot of people are not open with it. And they don't have a lot of people to share with. Whereas, you know, when you come into the village, the Birth Moms Real Talk village, we understand. We understand, we care, we love, we comfort you because we've been there, done that. We're here together with you. It's an African proverb called Ubuntu, Ubuntu. And I am because we are. I am because we are with that. So we've talked about for us how you get past the shame, the difference between shame and guilt, your perception versus your reality, your perception versus the reality. And let's just face it, a lot of codependency, dysfunction happens in a lot of families. And people will take things to the grave versus talking about a child being born, a precious child being born. And every child is precious. But to keep that secrecy and that pain hid up in you, dug, buried deep in you, you have got to get it out. You have just by sharing your is like sometimes a relief. I tell you, when I'm recording my podcast, a lot of times at the end of it, it's like, just like I said, title of my episode, I feel like I could breathe again after 45 years when I laid eyes on my son. Ooh, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. And I want all of you to have the grace and the healing and the growth each and every day, every week. Listen to this once a month. We're coming on our first anniversary. We're going to have a special episode that fourth Saturday. We're growing. We want more people to get involved with it. Invite me to your conferences. Invite me to your groups per se, to hear it from me. I'm not afraid. I'll say any and everything and any and every time, because there's no shame in my game, as they said. I'm proud. I'm proud of my son. I'm proud of what we have. God put us together. That birth bond, as I say, never, ever, 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 ever will be broken. Ever will. Ever will. So tune in the next time. Try to get on a frequency, but it will be once a month. Ruby Lee's podcast is all the rest of them. Listen to all of them. All of them are different, but yet the same. Now, and support us. Support us by joining the village. Send us an email at info@Birth Moms Real Talk. If you're interested in that, we'll send you out membership. Support us on Patreon. So go on Patreon, Birth Moms Real Talk. We've been doing this for a year. This isn't free. It costs money to do this, but we do it to bring it to you. But we need and want your support. So please support us. I hear from a lot of people, well, it's just has changed their lives and right, the boldness or whatever. Yeah, I stand boldly. I stand boldly on top of everything. Thank you, Latanya, Kelly, Lene, Ruby Lee, all of you who have who did something else. You don't have to be alone. Thank you, Lane. No, we don't. We do not have to be alone. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Listen to the podcast. Now I'm hoping also to bring some of the birth moms on. So a lot of you here on here now, Lene and Ruby Lee have done your podcast. So one of these TED Talks, a place of grace and healing, I'll bring you on so you can talk more in detail. The podcast, we cover your story, your journey, but we want some interaction. We want some interaction. I want you to hear back from me. Thank you. Give and listen to the podcast on Apple. Give a review, a 5-star rating that help us to really get, and we're getting some traction because I'm hearing from people and podcasters awards and whatever. And it's like, I'm just sitting, I'm just doing what I'm called to do. That's what I'm doing. Love you all. See you next time.